instances, society closer to oppressive tyranny were ignored by the people of those times, or were even received with enthusiasm. This shows that the threat posed by certain changes undertaken in the face of wars or crises is recognized in hindsight.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Hi guys, this is Tommy. Free thinking, innovative, and totally open-minded. Tommy Nation Politics.
Good? I know what most of you think of me. That I'm a thug, a smuggler, rebel. Then I started all of this. Asked for it. A drunk who never did anything with his life. And has caused all this trouble for everybody. Well, I'm here today to tell you that you're right. I am. I am all of those things and more. But in the eyes of the crown, I'm nothing. In the eyes of the crown, I'm nothing. You're just colonists. Who do you want to be? I mean, the answer actually isn't even important. It's the idea that we even have the right to ask the question, who do we want to be?
This is what I'm talking about, guys. Tommy Nation Politics.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics.
The more you tighten your grip, Tuck, the more star systems will slip through your...
We don't need a birthright. We don't need a family crest. And we certainly don't need the king's damn permission. What we need is a fair and equal chance. The freedom to live our lives the way that we see fit. And the confidence that that freedom cannot be taken away from us. That is our God-given right.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Last words. Be responsible. Responsibility.
Anyone to succeed, hanging clouds over me, and they can't try hard to make me feel that I don't matter at all. But I refuse to fall. Tell me what I believe or lose faith in my dreams. Cause there's a light in me
All the time at Facebook.
that shines brightly.
Go to our website, www.tommynation.com.
They can try, but they can't take that away from me. You know that? Can't take that away from me. And they couldn't take it away from my mother and father. They couldn't take it away from my grandparents, who were in Selma, fighting for the right to vote. They couldn't take it away from those slaves that came up from the Amistad. Clueless, wondering where and what the future would bring. What did it bring?
Yes, we are the sons of liberty. Save it from the storm.
Sons of Liberty. It's a tall oak tree, guys. They call it the Liberty Tree in Philadelphia. It was there that the Sons of Liberty hung in effigy. The first Brigadier General of the Stamp Act. Yes, chosen by King George III himself to deliver into his grasp taxation from the colonists is all King George saw. Was not a free man. It was not even a man. It was more like servants. It was more like conveniences to an end. It was more like, thank you for your sacrifice, George Floyd. King George thought of colonists as less than human. Just something to do with what he would like, because that was his bloodline. His Majesty's bloodline told him that he was better than other men. But our founding fathers had a different idea, guys. Very different. In fact, while monarchies were taking place, and rulers and nobles and dictators scoured the globe with their bands and tribes, and different kinds of governments happened. But we had the first democratic republic with a strong constitution that our founding fathers, throughout the entire monarchy, sought independence from a tyrant, from a monarch, and that they couldn't themselves, because God had given them that right, and God had given them that blessing. And all men had inalienable rights that could not be infringed upon. The rights of the people shall not be on, guys. Of course, I'm a huge fan of the founding fathers. I've told you guys that. And I know you guys know this is Nation Politics. How's it going? Late, guys, but I want to tell a little story of my own. And I've been thinking about it and sitting on it for a long time. Because I have a confession to make, guys. As much as I love George Washington, I mean, the guy was right about everything. Farewell address. Unscrupulous men shall usurp the reins of government from the very engines which into unjust dominion. What happened? What happened? Where are we now? So I always want to be the guy, guys, that history, we're all like, oh, I'm not going to be the guy that says Heil Hitler. I'm not going to be the guy who is supporting and complicit in evil and fascism. I'm going to be the Christian Bale in Equilibrium, right? I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to be standing for my principles and values, guys. And eventually we'll all have to, guys. But things never change. And there's only two kinds of people in this country. Patriots and loyalists. There were back in the first round. Patriots and loyalists, people that comply and the people that question authority, the people that want a better life, the people that themselves, the people that don't want to be sheep. Because we're not sheep. We're created in the image of God and given inalienable rights. Far from sheep. Far from sheep, guys. Some people just want to be sheep. Some people just want to live a simple life. And I don't understand that. But I could accept that with you. The thing I can't accept, though, is a complicity in tyranny. Is a complicity in evil. A lesser of two evils? Be it that, still evil. How people can settle for being complicit in the lesser of two evils? It drives me to madness, guys. Oh, it's the lesser of two evils. So I'm still going to be complicit in evil. Now, guys, I always thought that I was going to be the person that would stand for my principles and values, and I think I will. But I will admit to you guys that I am a mess, okay? I'm an artist that goes to bed late. I'm
I'm super messy, and I really drink a lot, and other things. I'm mostly drinking. I'm more like Sam Adams than George Washington. George Washington was very structured. He knew exactly what he was doing. He delivered, and he executed the goals. And we could not have got one Bunker Hill without him. We could not have won great victories without him. But I'm more like the founding father, Sam Adams, guys. He was the thorn in the side of the British, mostly because he was a rebel, mostly because he was an alcoholic. He grew up in a middle-class family. I mean, he wasn't a nobleman, but he was also not like George Washington. Wealth. He always did disobedience as a teenager, and he got into lots of trouble. In the middle class, and smart as hell. He most of his trouble. Now, he was promoting resistance throughout the entire British rule, even before the Stamp Act. But the Sons of Liberty really got it going with the representation message that drove home to all 13 colonies. It was really going down. What was really going down, guys, was that they were not being represented. Was that the Stamp Act guy from King George III came over from the Atlantic and delivered King George for no service and representation, for nothing but the fact that King George was trying to wage a war against France. And it was money. The only reason that he taxed this in the first place. And this whole revolution, guys, it didn't start out as a revolution. It started off 3 steps at a time, infringing upon rights once at a time, taking corn, taking textiles, putting taxes on textiles, giving people punishments that were absolutely horrible. The barracks, remember we had to put your hands in there in the square. Remember that, guys? That was the British. They were super cool like that. They were super stylish like that. They came up with the most unimaginable torture things that they could do to you and not call it torture. I mean, I guess from them there. But kind of drove the colonists mad, guys. And then once the Stamp Act, the tax of the tea came in. These 13 colonies, guys, they all talk differently. They all drank tea differently. But they all drank tea. And they said in one voice, guys, in Lexington and Concord, we are going to declare independence. They really did struggle with that, guys, for a long time, because not only was it, out of the ordinary to secede from a monarch, who was, by the way, a British conqueror. He was colonizing the Africas as they spoke, and Australia. So he was an emperor, pretty much. It was treason. If they lost, they would have been hung from the trees. But there's more things important than life, guys.
You're talking about a new country, a new nation.
And they said in one voice, guys, in Lexington and Concord, we are going to declare independence. They really did struggle with that, guys, for a long time, because not only was it, out of the ordinary to secede from a monarch, who was, by the way, a British conqueror. He was colonizing the Africas as they spoke, and Australia. So he was an emperor, pretty much. It was treason. If they lost, they would have been hung from the trees. But there's more things important than life, guys. And that's living life. Don't you think? It's a thing that I've learned during the pandemic. This thing I feel like Sam Adams was telling me is that what if you have a life in a country where you comply and it's not your own, you're a slave? Is that living? It's not to me. And Sam Adams soon grew very close with the other founding fathers. And he had a lot to say. He was very, very unsuccessful as a city tax collector, performing his duties at Epley, as all kinds of jobs, guys. He even was a smuggler. But he started asking questions, and he realized that he had really good social social hookups. Like he knew people who knew people who knew people. Well, that kind of formed into the Sons of Liberty. You don't like this tax either? You don't like this tax? You see what they did? What are they going to do next? When's enough enough? Well, the Founding Fathers thought that it was enough. Stamp Act. And they gathered up in Philadelphia and burned an effigy. The Stamp Act collectors' effigy. And that was the start of war, guys, for them. And they facilitated the war to come, the revolution. Had they been alive today, they would have been insurrectionists, rebels, Trumpists, Assad apologists. But that day, they created something new. Now, going back, guys, to the Patriots and the Loyalists, of course, it's in this time where not only were they collecting taxes on stamps, but they were also allowing British soldiers to live in people's houses for free. These people were coming over from Britain because they were fighting France, and they had no place to stay. The king did an ordinance that they would, and they had to stay at these colonists' houses. So these people had to take these soldiers in and adopt them for the king. I mean, their house wasn't, their property wasn't their own, their lives weren't their own, they were the king's. Their liberty wasn't their own. And they were tired of it, guys. That's what started this change. They wanted life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and a willingness to have property. They couldn't even own property because it was all the king's. No more, guys. But without a willingness to fight for freedom, one never gets it. Without a willingness to work for the common good, one never gets unification. And the greatest speech, guys, how the Sons of Liberty helped ignite the revolution. This guy, Sam Adams, named after a beer, for a good reason, made a great speech. And it catapulted and ignited all the Founding Fathers to action. Check it out.
We are now on this continent, to the astonishment of the world, 3 millions of souls united in one cause. We have large armies, well-disciplined and appointed, with commanders inferior to none in military skill and superior in activity and zeal. We are furnished with arsenals and stores beyond our most sanguine expectations, and foreign nations are waiting to crown our success by their alliances. There are instances of, I would say, an almost astonishing providence in our favor. Our success has staggered our enemies and almost given faith to infidels. So we may truly say it is not our own arm which has saved. The hand of heaven appears to have led us on to be, perhaps, humble instruments and means in the great providential dispensation which is completing. We cannot suppose that our opposition has made a corrupt and dissipated nation more friendly to America, or created in them a greater respect for the rights of mankind. We can, therefore, expect a restoration and establishment of our privileges, and a compensation for the injuries we have received from their want of power, from their fears, and not from their virtues.
Hallelujah.
The unanimity and valor which will effect an honorable peace can render a future contest for our liberties unnecessary. He who has strength to chain down the wolf is a madman if he let him loose without drawing his teeth and paring his nails. We have no other alternative than independence, or the most ignominious and galling servitude. The legions of our enemies thicken on our plains. Desolation and death mark their bloody career, whilst the mangled corpses of our countrymen seem to cry out to us as a voice from heaven. Our union is now complete. our Constitution composed, established, and approved. You have now, in the field, are sufficient to repel the whole force of your enemy.
(1781), 3 years of bitter reverses, and George Washington still fought on against tremendous odds.
Many of our troops are so nearly naked that they cannot leave their quarters. Even my officers are in such dire distress that they...
Colonel Tillman and Mr. Robert Morris.
Ah, I'm glad to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. We have bad news, sir.
Yes?
The militia are deserting in hundreds and marching to Philadelphia to lay their claims before Congress. They say that if money isn't raised to pay them, feed them, and clothe them properly, they'll lay down their arms and surrender to the enemy. Harsh measures are needed, sir.
Not harsh measures. But money is needed most of all. I was just writing an appeal to Congress.
Congress with an empty treasury.
It must be replenished.
As Superintendent of Finance, I can assure you, General Washington, that I have exhausted every possible source of revenue.
We're living in times of sacrifice, Mr. Morris. Those patriots who've given before must give again. Colonel Tillman, make ready to ride at once to Philadelphia. I want you to deliver a message to I'm Solomon.
Mr. Haim Salomon here.
Yes, but the Holy
I'm
Service...
sorry, but I must see him. General Washington's ordered.
Colonel Tillman.
Mr. Salomon.
What is it? Why are you here?
I have an important message from General Washington.
Will you open it, please?
Hi. Have you forgotten that this is the eve of atonement?
I'm sorry, Rabbi, but this is very urgent.
Is it of greater urgency than our holy service?
Forgive me, Rabbi, but this gentleman brings a message from General Washington.
Washington?
Yes, Rabbi. May I speak to the congregation?
An appeal from General Washington must be heeded. God will forgive us.
My friends, the struggle for our independence is in danger of being lost. General Washington has no money, food, or clothing for his ragged army. He has asked us to help him raise the $400,000 he so badly needs. I know that you've given, even beyond your means, but now we must give again. It isn't charity, I ask. It's an offering to the cause of liberty, a cause sacred to us above all others, because centuries of bitter persecution have taught us the value of liberty. If we want to continue living as free men in a free land, if we want to bequeath to our children this priceless heritage, then we must give. It is not our duty to leave wealth to our children. It is our duty to leave them liberty.
I can raise 10,000 on my store. You can have that, Mr. Solomon.
To leave our kids life, liberty, and happiness. That is the birthright of our posterity. That is promoting the general welfare. Leaving your kids a world with compliance, fact-checking, mandates, and ordinances is not America. This is a mockery of our values and principles. This is a matrix. This is a system, Nia. Like a splinter in your mind, you knew something was wrong. but you couldn't figure out what it was. Something inside of you said that the world wasn't alright. All you had to do wasn't to follow Morpheus or Trinity down a rabbit hole. All you had to do was look at this political system in utter gridlock and constant dysfunction, unless the banks, Wall Street, or the military-industrial complex need bailouts or stock market buffering, any kind of kickbacks or deregulation. Then they work in 48 hours. This government doesn't work for us, it only works for them. It's as clear as a goddamn crystal. And it's time for the sons of to once again bring about liberty. Sometimes, my friends, the tree of liberty might be watered with the blood of tyrants and traitors and patriots alike, for that is its natural manure.
The question before the House is one of awful moment to this country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time, through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty of treason toward my country. I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been lately received? We have done everything that could be done to avert the storm which is now coming on. If we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have so long been engaged, we must fight!
Patrick Henry was born on May 29, 1736, in Hanover County, Virginia. Young Patrick Henry was educated at home by his father John Henry. Patrick then went on to study law.
We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth, and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us into beasts.
He became more well known in 1763, when he argued the parson's cause in Hanover County. He proclaimed a king who would veto a good and necessary law made by a locally elected representative body was not the father to his people, but a tyrant.
Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. Ask yourselves how this gracious reception of our petition comports with those warlike preparations which cover our waters and darken our land.
In 1765, he was elected to the House of Burgesses. He debated against the Stamp Act.
They are meant for us. They can be meant for no other. They are sent over to bind and rivet upon us those chains which the British ministry have been so long forging. And what have we to oppose to them? Shall we try argument? Sir, we have been trying that for the last 10 years. Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves.
On March 23, 1775, 10 years later, he gave his most famous speech at the Virginia Convention, inside St. John's Church, in Richmond, Virginia.
They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week? Or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed, and when a British guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemy shall have us bound hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means which the God of nature hath placed in our power. The millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country as that which we possess, are invincible by any force which our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, and the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. Their clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come! I repeat it, sir, let it come! It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God! I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty, or give me death!
Less than a month later, the British marched on Lexington and Concord. Patrick Henry then helped George Washington obtain the men necessary for the Continental Army.
I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know of no way of judging of the future but by the past.
He later went on to serve as a delegate to the Second Continental Congress, and also as Virginia's governor. Patrick Henry was a leader in protests against British tyranny and in the movement for colonial rights.
With the spirit of freedom. They are animated with the goodness of their cause, and while they grasp their swords, can look up to heaven for assistance. Your adversaries are composed of wretches who laugh at the rights of humanity.
They do.
Who turn religion into derision.
They did.
And would, for higher wages, direct their swords against their leaders.
Does this all sound familiar, guys? Wanton corruption? People that would defame their own families if they were told to by the Democratic or Republican leaderships? People with absolutely no principles and no values ruling us. Do you remember that time, guys? That was Britain. That was England. That was a corrupt King George who spent himself so far and so fast in between France, England, freaking Italy, trying to conquer Africa's. The guy spent so much money he lost everything, bro. And the French came to our aid because they hated him too. It's so funny, guys. It's so funny how wanted corruption, narcissists, megalomaniacs create enemies. And those enemies are could be our friends. Guys, it's so clear. The writing's on the wall. The same things are happening again. These guys have no cares about us. They would literally like it if we died so they could fundraise off of our deaths and use it to get back to office. All they care about is their donors and their campaign war chests and their power, which they maintain by any means necessary. And that by any means necessary, guys, is lying to us constantly, every election year, over and over and over again. The only thing that makes me sad is the fact that I see people today talking about the right and the left and how the right is a bunch of blah, blah, blahs and the left is a bunch of blah, blah, blahs. You're spitting out their rhetoric, their disgusting, treasonous, serpentous rhetoric. You're parroting them. What do you get out of it? Don't you know that they don't give a shit about you? They don't care about abortion. They don't care about you. They parrot and imitate your principles and values. So you can stay in this game, this farce, this illusion. But like Sam Adams says, guys, sooner or later, life will find a way, and so will liberty. And so, I just have to say, guys, if you want to go ahead and parrot the puppets of the rich, whichever side goes, the right, the left, the loony left, the Trumpists, calling people names, not working for the common good, I'm going to be here reminding everybody that 13 colonies signed a Declaration of Independence and wrote a constitution in which all of us had inalienable rights created under God, that all men were created equal. And under that constitution and under that Declaration of Independence, we established a new era. And that era has been great, and it has been providential, it's been blessed. I don't know how. We didn't do everything perfectly. Definitely did horrible things. But that one instance, to not be ruled by men, but to be ruled by ourselves and to look to God for guidance. Maybe that blessed us, even though we're fucking still savages. Maybe that was the lesser evil. You know? I don't know, guys. I'm just pondering that. Because things are going to change soon. I can feel it. Can you? When the time comes, maybe I won't be George Washington, but I can goddamn be Sam Adams. Samuel Adams. Always a good decision, guys. Tommy Nation Politics. My live stream this Tuesday is going to be Sons of Liberty. 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join me. We're going to talk more about this. And we're going to figure ways to defeat these loyalists and their king. It brought life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However ugly we got there. Whatever human violation and crimes along the way took place in the name of capitalism, nationalism, jingoism, and greed. Providence shined. Providence shined and smiled upon the face of the first democratic republic of all time, the United States of America, in which 13 colonies, all different, all very opinionated, all so divided, were united under a constitution made in Philadelphia and ratified in Lexington and Concord in 1775. It said that men should not be ruled by other men, for we were made in the image of God himself. And God, in his providence and wisdom, gave us free will, gave us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a pursuit which manifested a destiny of greatness, of nobility, of undetermined potential. What were we to do with all that undetermined potential, guys? Well, time has only told the story of what we have done with our untold potential, our inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But one thing is for certain, that we were warned by the first president of the United States that two political parties would usurp the reins of government from the people and carve for themselves the very engines
from the very engines of which brought them to unjust dominion. Those people, those unscrupulous, narcissistic, megalomaniac, psychopathic cretins have taken over our government for now. But guys, I want you to see, in all sincerity, in all purity, the fact that on September 25th, 1789, the first Congress of the United States proposed 12 amendments to the Constitution. A Constitution which was already pretty fucking badass. It sure beat the hell out of monarchy in the first place, guys. The first democratic republic to show its face and to thrive. So promising. The joint resolution of Congress proposed amendments and displayed them in the National Archives Museum. 10 of the proposed 12 amendments were ratified by the 3/4 of the state legislature on December the 15th, 1791. The ratified articles constitute the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, guys. A Constitution that starts with a preamble that states clearly the objective and the goal and the vision. That we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, promote the general welfare, and secure for ourselves and our posterity the blessings which may come from freedom. The Congress of the United States began and held the ratification in the city of New York on Wednesday. That Wednesday, guys, the conventions of a number of states having at the time adopted the Constitution for the first time expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, a further ratification of other amendments. And they were resolved by the Senate and the House of Representatives. And Congress assembled, 2/3 of both houses concurring, that the following articles be proposed to the legislature. These amendments of the Constitution, guys, they would be articles which were ratified by 3/4 of the legislature and signed into law by a president. And they were all on the same page, united. Article the first. After the first enumeration required by the first article of the Constitution, there shall be one representative for every 30,000, until the number shall amount to 100. Article the second. No law varying the compensation of the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until the election of representatives shall have intervened. Article the third. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of people to peaceably assemble, and to give petition the government for a redress of grievances. Article the fourth. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The fifth. No soldier in any time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner. That was especially special to the colonials, because at the time, guys, well, let's just say that this revolution started in baby steps, guys. Freedom after freedom after freedom after life after liberty was being infringed, and when is enough enough? Founding fathers thought that taxation without representation was enough. Here we are. The Democrats and Republicans have gone over taxation without representation to mandates, ordinances, unelected deep state spooks, administrations carrying surveillance state, police state, organizations that were only made to surveil, curtail, and apprehend leftists. McCarthyism. jingoism, nationalism, culminating around these two parties, making a mockery of our principles and values, and also, to top it all off, usurping the reins of government from the power of the people and carving for themselves from the very engines that brought them to unjust dominion. An oligarchy. It was clear from 30 years into the first emanations of our nation that corruption would be rife because the free people had a free will. And not all people are good people. But to curtail that, we had amendments, we had a living document of a constitution, we had checks and balances, and all kinds of systems to be put in place so that corruption would not be the last word, that justice would be the last word. But now with campaign finance contributions, with lobbying, with campaign finance, war chests, and untold dark money donations, the checks and balances have eroded. The two parties are the same coin on the sides. And our government is not a democracy, but a plutocracy. Now, as I've constantly told all of you guys that are listening, this is something that George Washington warned about in his farewell address. This is something that Benjamin Franklin would make jokes about, saying that a kind of democracy that supports only the political class and not the people, well, that would be like a democracy of two wolves and a lamb asking, what are we going to have for lunch today? Benjamin Franklin was funny. It's not funny anymore, guys. As we approach 2022, almost 300 years after the beginning of a first democratic republic, I can observe that the systems put in place that were good have long since been eroded. And justice is all but a illusion. There is no justice. Without justice, guys, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. It's just a prophecy. It's just a policy. It's just a consequence of neoliberal policies. No justice, no peace. It can be said from here to the Middle East.
Thanks for joining us today at Tommy Nation Politics. And don't forget to think responsibly.
Founding father Samuel Adams was a thorn in the side of the British in the years before the American Revolution. As a political activist and state legislator, he spoke out against the British efforts to tax the colonists and pressure merchants, boycott British products. That was the message. And the Sons of Liberty, a radical group that engaged in violent civil disobedience and retaliation against the British. They were led by Samuel Adams. He was skillful in propaganda. He was an alcoholic, so obviously a pathological liar, probably. Just kidding, guys. Let's not get personal. But in fact, while George Washington led the American colonists to victory in the Revolutionary War, of course, as he was the general, there might not have been a revolution. Not at all, if it weren't for a provocateur such as Samuel Adams. Adams isn't just a firebrand and the founding father, stratosphere. He'll push the modern colonial leaders into joining the resistance, right, and against the British. They were victorious. He wasn't a rabble-rouser. He was a serious politician, a political theorist, one who championed the notion of individual rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, core American values. Those were the inalienable rights that we earned in the Constitution of a new democratic republic. The document, guys. The living document. So, we can make some choices here, just like the founding fathers. Or we couldn't, and let the political class steer us They've been steering us for 40 years now. Where has it got us? It got us right back where we started, guys, in old Boston. You know, when Adams attended Boston Latin School, and then he went to Harvard College, it was there that Adams was introduced to the writings of John Locke. Y'all remember those? Liberal values, life, liberty, property, certain rights that could not be taken away, inalienable. The governments exist by the people, for the people, we the people. And so that's what he wrote his master's degree in Harvard on. He wrote it on that, the John Locke principles. I mean, maybe not, he wasn't a Rhodes Scholar like Rachel, not out, but he was more effective. Or maybe Rachel is now. Who knows what is really going on in the minds of partisans? I don't. But it's time for guys to run the business. The business, well, our birthright, our inheritance, our John Locke principles. If we don't invest in our principles and values, guys, guess what? They go bankrupt. Our duties are so ineptly being carried out by the inherited that it's like almost a waste. And maybe that will be the reason why we lose our civil liberties, guys. Very important. And even though some people thought that Sam Adams was a drunk who never did anything with his life, caused trouble for everybody, while he stood at Lexington and Concord, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? Those are the questions that I ask myself every day. Start asking them yourself. Because in the eyes of the crown, you're nothing. In the eyes of the crown, nobody is nothing. Everybody's nothing. In the eyes of the crown, you don't matter. In the eyes of the 1% that own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined, you're just a colonist. A colonist who is expendable. Do you want to be expendable, guys? Or do you want to be powerful? The choice is up to us. And that's what a Son of Liberty is all about. You know, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots alike, for that is its natural manure. Thomas Jefferson said that. And so far, like direct hits. All the Founding Fathers, all their comments, direct hits on all the political administrations since Reagan. So, is there a time now where we can get an equal chance, guys? Equality, equity, true leftist principles? Is there a time where we can see fit the confidence that the freedoms that we enjoy can be sustained and renewed? But, I guess my point, guys, is our God-given rights shall not be infringed. And, do you agree? If you're on the chat, let me know. If you don't agree, could you stop watching me? Please shut the fuck up.